Most people don't actually remember the exact moment their paycheck disappears. There's no dramatic purchase, no massive withdrawal, no obvious mistake. Instead, it happens quietly, almost invisibly. One day you check your bank account and feel relieved that your paycheck finally came through. Then a few days later, you look again and feel confused, maybe even a little anxious. Because somehow, without doing anything extreme, a large portion of your money is already gone. And the strange part is that this cycle repeats itself every single month. Paycheck arrives. Relief. A few small purchases. A few automatic payments. Maybe a dinner out or a quick online order. And before you know it, that paycheck that was supposed to last weeks suddenly feels like it lasted only a few days. If you've ever felt this way, you're not alone. In fact, millions of people experience the exact same pattern, even people who technically make good money. And the reason your paycheck seems to disappear so quickly isn't just because you spend too much. It's because of a set of financial habits and psychological triggers that quietly drain your account before you even realize what's happening. One of the biggest reasons your paycheck feels gone so quickly is something called the payday spending spike. When money first arrives in your account, your brain immediately experiences a sense of relief. For days or even weeks before payday, you may have been mentally tracking your spending more carefully. You might have delayed purchases or told yourself you'd wait until your paycheck hits before buying certain things. So when the money finally arrives, your brain shifts out of that cautious mindset. Suddenly it feels safe to spend again. You order food instead of cooking. You replace something you've been putting off buying. Maybe you scroll through an online store and finally grab something that caught your eye earlier in the week. None of these decisions feel irresponsible in the moment. In fact, they feel completely justified. But when several of them happen within the first 48 to 72 hours after payday, they create a surge of spending that quietly removes a large chunk of your paycheck almost immediately. Another major factor is something people rarely notice: automatic expenses. When your paycheck arrives, it doesn't actually belong entirely to you anymore. A portion of it has already been claimed by recurring payments that trigger quietly in the background. Rent or mortgage payments, insurance, subscriptions, phone bills, streaming services, cloud storage, music platforms, app memberships, fitness apps, delivery services. Over time, many people accumulate dozens of small recurring charges without realizing how large the total has become. Each individual charge feels small: $5 here, $10 there, maybe 15 for something you barely remember signing up for. But when several of those charges hit your account right after payday, the impact is surprisingly large. What felt like a full paycheck just hours ago suddenly shrinks dramatically, and you're left wondering where a big portion of it went. Then there's the problem of invisible spending, which is one of the most common financial leaks in modern life. Invisible spending happens when money leaves your account in ways that don't feel like traditional purchases. For example, you might quickly tap your card to grab coffee in the morning. Later in the day, you use your phone to pay for lunch. Maybe that evening you order something online in just a few seconds. None of these moments require you to physically hand over cash. You don't see the money leaving your wallet. You don't feel the same emotional frictions that people used to experience when spending physical bills. Instead, everything happens instantly, smoothly, and almost effortlessly. This convenience is great for speed, but it also means your brain doesn't register each purchase with the same intensity. When spending becomes frictionless, it becomes easier to repeat. And those small purchases start stacking on top of each other faster than you expect. There's also something called the lifestyle creep effect, which slowly raises your monthly spending without you noticing. When your income increases even slightly, your lifestyle tends to adjust upward. Maybe you start choosing slightly nicer restaurants. Maybe you upgrade a few services, or buy slightly better versions of things you used to purchase. None of these upgrades feel dramatic on their own, but over time they become your new normals. The problem is that lifestyle creep doesn't usually happen all at once. It happens gradually, in small increments that barely feel noticeable. And once those higher spending habits become routine, they quietly absorb more of each paycheck than they used to. That's one reason people who receive raises sometimes feel just as financially stressed as they did before their income increased. Another reason your paycheck disappears so quickly is the subscription economy. Companies today are extremely good at designing services that charge you automatically every month. And once a payment becomes automatic, it fades into the background of your financial awareness. Think about how many platforms now operate on a monthly subscription model: streaming services, software tools, storage plans, digital media, learning platforms, even everyday conveniences like food delivery memberships. Individually, these subscriptions feel small and manageable, but when you add them all together, they can quietly consume hundreds of dollars per month. And because they renew automatically, many people don't evaluate them regularly. They simply continue paying month after month, long after the original excitement of signing up has faded. But perhaps the most powerful force behind disappearing paychecks is emotional spending. Money decisions aren't purely logical. They're deeply connected to how we feel throughout the day. Stress at work can trigger a quick online purchase as a reward. Boredom can lead to scrolling through shopping apps. Social media can create the feeling that everyone else is enjoying experiences or products that you should probably try too. Even something as simple as feeling tired after a long day can lead to ordering food instead of cooking. None of these decisions feel like major financial mistakes. They feel like small comforts, and in moderation, they're perfectly normal. But when emotional spending becomes a regular habit, it slowly drains more money than most people realize. There's also a psychological pattern called mental accounting, which affects how people think about money after they get paid. When a paycheck arrives, many people mentally divide it into different categories without writing anything down. They might think, okay, this part is for bills, this part is for fun, and this part is for saving. But because these divisions exist only in your mind, they're easy to blur. A few extra purchases here and there slowly shift those invisible boundaries. And before long, the money that was supposed to go towards savings or long-term goals has already been spent on everyday conveniences. Another factor that accelerates the disappearance of your paycheck is delayed financial awareness. Many people don't check their bank accounts daily. Instead, they glance at the balance every few days or even once a week. By the time they look again, multiple charges have already been processed. The brain struggles to connect those charges with the individual decisions that caused them. It simply sees the lower balance and feels surprised. But from the bank's perspective, nothing mysterious happened. Each purchase occurred exactly as intended. The only difference is that they accumulated faster than your awareness of them. Interestingly, modern technology both helps and hurts this situation. On one hand, digital banking makes it easier than ever to track spending and view transactions. But on the other hand, the same technology that allows instant tracking also enables instant spending. With a few taps on a phone, you can purchase something from almost anywhere in the world and have it delivered to your door within days. That level of convenience would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago. But convenience has a hidden cost. The easier it becomes to spend money, the more frequently people do it. Over time, these patterns combine into a powerful cycle. Payday arrives and triggers a sense of relief. Small purchases follow because spending feels safe again. Automatic bills quietly remove another portion of the money. Subscriptions renew in the background. Emotional purchases pop up during stressful or boring moments, and because many of these transactions happen digitally and instantly, they don't feel as significant as they really are. By the time you check your balance again, the total has dropped more than expected, and the cycle begins to repeat itself. The good news is that once you understand why this pattern happens, it becomes much easier to interrupt it. You don't need extreme budgeting or complicated financial systems to slow the disappearance of your paycheck. Often, the most effective solution is simply creating more awareness around how money moves through your account during those first few days after payday. When you start paying attention to the small purchases, recurring charges, and emotional spending triggers that occurred during that window, you begin to see patterns that were invisible before. For many people, the biggest breakthrough comes from realizing that their paycheck isn't disappearing because they lack discipline. It's disappearing because the modern financial environment is designed to make spending incredibly easy and incredibly fast. Once you recognize that reality, you can start designing your own habits and systems to work in your favor instead of against you. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to eliminate every small purchase or completely remove enjoyment from your spending. The goal is simply to make sure your paycheck is working toward the things that actually matter to you, instead of quietly disappearing through habits and systems you never intended to create. And once you begin noticing where your money truly goes in those first few days after payday, something interesting starts to happen. The feeling that your paycheck vanishes suddenly begins to fade. Not because you're earning dramatically more money, but because you finally understand the subtle patterns that were draining it all along.